Hey everybody, welcome to Columbus this week. I am Trevor, sort of filling in for Eric doing the intro, and I have a guest host in the studio today. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi all, my name's Sam.
All right, yep, we'll have Sam with us. Eric's on vacation. He's out in some mountain state getting drunk and skiing, probably at the same time. So yeah, it's gonna be Sam here with us this time. Should be a fun episode.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. First up, we have a follow-up from something we talked about last week. So Millennial Tower, which apparently this is the best thing I've heard about this tower. The name is like a working name, so it's not like the final name. So they're gonna name it something not dumb at the end, hopefully. But anyways, the construction for Millennial Tower has been approved. So they got their 3 floors of LED advertisement nonsense. Which, last week I said, they probably wanted 3 in the first place. They figured, they'd throw 5 out and then get it rejected and get what they wanted anyways. And so it looks like construction is going to move forward. Next up, Sam, you had an event you wanted to talk about?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to throw a plug in there for this band called The Wildlife that I really like. They're from Indianapolis, and they'll be playing on Saturday, February 3rd at Space Bar. Show starts at 9, ends at midnight, and should be a pretty fun time. I like Space Bar. So
what's the cost on that?
It's $5 if you buy tickets beforehand, or $7 at the door.
Wow, $7. Yeah. I don't know if many Columbusites can swing that. Everyone's got to save up for their avocado toast or something. Anyways, we'll be skipping construction roundup since Eric isn't here to enthrall us with the wonderful buildings of Columbus. I hear we're probably getting HQ 2 though, so that's next week. That'll be in the right down the pipeline. All right, so there's been a bunch of drama on Twitter recently due to and you should look in the show notes. But essentially, you've heard of Little Bar and Big Bar, right?
I sure have.
Same owner. Also apparently owns this donut shop, and there was this little bit of confusion where this dress code that was supposed to be put up for Big Bar was actually placed on the door for the donut shop, and people lost their minds because it's first of all, it's ridiculous to have a dress code anywhere, but especially for a donut shop. And then there was a bunch of pretty much everyone is okay, this dress code is essentially there to keep the hipsters and black people out, right?
We should read it off.
Oh, really? You want to read it?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's just go through this list really quick.
Cool.
So the dress code sign says, no excess jewelry, no white tees, no baggy clothing, no camo clothing, no cutoffs, no ripped clothing, no athletic pants/shorts, no bandanas, no backpacks, no Jordan Air Force Ones, no vaping inside. So
yeah, that's pretty much 2/3 of that list literally is that is associated with urban African Americans, bandanas, white T-shirts, to some extent camo, Jordans. I think people are right when they're they're trying to keep a certain clientele out of their business. And while the whole mix up with the donut thing or the donut shop thing is funny because you can't wear a white T-shirt into a donut shop. It's ridiculous. Having dress codes in general, I feel is kind of ridiculous. I was actually bounced from Brothers for wearing athletic pants one day. I went to some event that was going on there. Me and my girlfriend, we literally got turned away at the door because I had on athletic pants. It was the most ridiculous thing on the planet. I had just left the gym 30 minutes ago. It's crazy. Why does that exist? Do you want to posit anything that's not keep black people out, Sam?
I don't understand why white tees are a stereotype.
I don't know. I feel they're a very basic piece of clothing that isn't that often worn by itself. I don't know, but I do kind of I don't think you see that many people walking around with just white tees on and nothing else. I think it is a predominantly black thing.
All right, I own a white V-neck, so.
Do you wear it with nothing covering it?
In the summer.
Really?
Yeah, not an undershirt, but you can go to I have a various assortment of colored V-necks that I wear.
Regardless, I think all dress codes are dumb.
Yeah.
In general, even at like I don't know, like fancy restaurants have them too. Like
I've not been to the bar. Is it like a upscale bar, or are they just actually trying to discriminate?
I don't know, but what I can say is I've been to Gasworks and Brothers, which have very similar dress codes, and they're like the trashiest frat bar, sticky floor mess you could ever imagine.
Well, then that's just garbage.
Yeah, I know, isn't it nonsense?
Yeah.
Like, who are they trying to keep out? Like, they can't do much worse. At least those bars, they can't do much worse than the customers they already have.
Well, go ahead and wear your gym clothes.
I should. Anyways, next on in the 2 minutes hate, which is going to be more than 2 minutes now. So the NSA has finally removed honesty and openness from their core values. Which is to say that at one point, until very recently, the NSA held honesty and openness in their core values.
See, like, honesty, obviously, we know the NSA now, so that doesn't apply to them. But openness, I feel like, has been anti-NSA.
Yeah, that would be like the CIA being like, yeah, we're a very open organization. You know, everyone will tell you anything you want to.
Hey, what does the S stand for in NSA?
Super.
Oh, wow. Super open.
The National Super Agency. I mean, security through obscurity isn't exactly a high bar, anyways. But I mean, yeah, the fact that those were listed as core values is a joke. So at least they're being honest in removing honesty. No. I mean, it's like Google when Google, changed their motto from "Don't be evil" to Alphabet's "Do the right thing." It's sort of telling. I mean, they're at least acknowledging it internally finally that they're shitty. Next up, Sam, you wanted to talk about the 1%ers of the world and how great they are.
All right, so I was a little upset. This article that caught a lot of traction on Reddit that says world's top 1% earn 82% of wealth. I think a lot of people on Reddit agreed with my initial reaction, so once I looked into the comments, I was at least a little more relaxed. But I think it's pretty well known that the world does not make a lot of money compared to the U.S. Like, if you earn, what is it, $33,000 a year?
Yeah, I think 33, 34.
That puts you in the top 1%. So to say that like 82% of the world's wealth is generated by the top 1%, that 1% is not the 1% you're hearing all the people talk about in the U.S. when they're talking about the like elite rich. They're talking about the average American, and they're trying to like skew it so that people hate on the rich a little more. And
yeah, you know who's really ruining the world? Elementary school teachers. Making their $35,000 a year or whatever. Although starting, they don't even make that. So, I mean, the messed up thing too is that in the U.S., like the average wage is like $27,000. So you're basically saying that like if you make more than like the average person, counting unemployed and retired people in the U.S., you make more than that, then you're part of the 1% that's ruining the world. You're taking all the money, you're hoarding it from people. I mean, it's not our fault that like average yearly wage in a place like Ghana is like in the single digit thousands, right? Like $5,000 a year, and you're making good money. Of course, your rent's also like nothing.
Yeah, I was
like
say,
literally
what's
nothing.
The cost of living there? Because if you compare it to the U.S., it makes sense.
I mean, it's worth noting that we do generally have a higher quality of life compared to most countries, and especially most populations in the world. But saying, that the 1% of the world have 82% of the world's wealth is kind of ridiculous when, like, I mean, the entirety of Africa, it's like almost, like, what is it? It's between a quarter and a third of the world's population. Like, most of Africa is, like, destitutely poor. And how many people in Africa, like, fit the bill for being, part of the top 1% of the world? Meanwhile, it's like 40% of the U.S. is in the top 1%.
Yeah, I feel like this is just like a clickbait headline that managed to get reported on every, like, almost every major news site.
We should open our borders.
Open the borders.
That's the only fair way to go about it.
Eric would appreciate it if I said we should just let everybody come to the U.S.
Should we?
No comment.
We'll just let everybody come to every country though.
Oh,
I think that's a good idea. And then everybody ends up in Sweden and Norway and the U.S. and Great Britain, et cetera, et cetera. And then like everything's shitty because unemployment's crazy, and everyone abandoned all these countries.
seems like the reasonable solution.
Yeah,
All right, let's move on.
sure. So Sam, finally in the 2 minutes hate, we have a little bit more salt from the now ever growing Amazon salt farms. First up, we have a tweet from Birmingham, Alabama. This is from their hashtag Bring A to B movement, which Birmingham started in order to try and get H2Q. Okay, but let's not make any rash decisions, Amazon. This is in response to the top 20 list. Call us when you're ready. Giant picture of HQ3. Phone emoji. Hashtag Bring A to B. Birmingham, Alabama. We'll get it next time. Sorry we didn't make the top 20.
You gotta appreciate their effort at least.
Yeah, and then we have one Steve Ducey who is upset about the state of Amazon in Ohio. His tweet is presented without comment. 3 images. Study: more than 1 in 10 Amazon employees in Ohio is on food stamps. Not that surprising, considering most of Amazon's employees are like factory workers. Honestly,
Or drivers now.
oh, I forgot they do hire. They do
Yeah,
hire a
but
ton
like, what
drivers
kind
now.
of people usually take a driver position?
Yeah, I mean, like we don't have low skill jobs here. It's like Ohio, the place where we have a ton of low skill jobs. There are people who meet conditions that people who have low skill jobs take. That's not a shock.
I feel like driver is like the typical second job. Like when my parents were like not doing so hot, like my dad started delivering pizzas. So it's not that surprising that 1 in 10 people.
Anyways, so that was the first image. Second image: Amazon's new checkout-free grocery store doesn't take food stamps. that is funny considering the former fact, right? Although to be fair, my guess is it's probably more expensive, and if you're on food stamps, you shouldn't be spending your money there anyways. Like, this is speaking as somebody who spent most of his life on food stamps. Like, Amazon online services, honestly, places like Kroger and Giant Eagle, even just not worth your money if you're on food stamps. Literally, just go to Aldi. It's for serious. And then Jeff Bezos is the richest person in history, which I don't know if that's true. He might currently be the richest, but I don't think he had the most, or I don't think he had the most or accumulated the most money. Because I know Warren Buffett donated an insane amount of billions of dollars to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So while that's technically true, and I get the point they're trying to make, right? Bezos has a ton of money while he has employees on food stamps. But I don't know. I just think this is like somebody being angry. I mean, this person is literally angry that Amazon is possibly going to come to Ohio when Ohio employees are already being treated badly. So what are your thoughts?
If Amazon brings their headquarters here, there will be a lot of employees there who aren't on food stamps.
To be fair, though, I'm honestly surprised it's as low as 1 in 10, because I feel like all the Amazon jobs that are here, aside from data center jobs, or no, they didn't. That was Facebook's data center. So yeah, like all their jobs here, I guess in the central Ohio area at least, are the kind of jobs where it's feasible for someone to qualify for food stamps. So it's not surprising.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that's it for the 2 minutes hate. You ready to move on to Columbus news?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. So first up, we have legislation on the table. Actually, a proposal from a state lawmaker, Lisa Vigil Chattinger, who wants terminally ill Ohio patients to be able to end their own lives with the assistance of their doctor, right? We've seen similar bills like this before that haven't gotten through. This is a physician-assisted suicide bill. Similar bills are currently in the works in Hawaii, Maine, Massachusetts, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, and this is Ohio's version. So, what are your thoughts, Sam?
This is a hard spot for me because, part of me feels like if you're in a state where you're in pain and you know that you don't have much time left, you should be able to make that decision for yourself. And other part of me feels like there's a lot of value to life, and there's a lot of crazy things that have happened before where people have made it through tough situations. And, I can't say I'd be casting a vote on this one.
I gotta say, this is a couple really interesting takeaways from the story. First of all, the American Medical Association decided to weigh in, and really decided to weigh in on a way I never thought they would. Coming from their, just a quote from their ethics code, physician-assisted suicide is fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risks. Now, I think that's kind of nonsense. The idea that, like, physicians shouldn't be, because they're healers, they shouldn't be in a role where they're ending people's lives. Like, I mean, worst case, essentially what they're saying is, in order to, like, satisfy the ego of a physician as a healer, people should be forced to suffer maximally so that they live as long as they can to meet some weird, like, fantasy role of the physicians. That's nonsense.
That almost seems like a physician should never, like, tell the person or their family that they have X amount of time left to live, because, that would be setting a cap on, like, their possibilities.
Oh, man. Also, like, it sort of limits the things that don't actually ever get limited by the work physicians actually do. Like, I feel like surgery where there's a risk of death for something that isn't going to cause death, I feel like that would be completely off the table if we're going to follow this code of ethics, right? And every surgery has a risk of death. And there are a lot of surgeries that are that just, like, they're cosmetic surgeries. There are surgeries that exist to, like, help people's self-esteem because, they were a burn victim, or just, annoying things that aren't necessarily going to kill you. Like, I have Dupuytren's. If I get that surgically sort of dealt with temporarily, like, I could conceivably die. It's very unlikely, but
I
could
explain that to our listeners.
Okay, sure. Hand disease that causes, like, fingers to slowly over, like, years, months, retract in, and then you basically can't use the last two fingers in your hands. But anyways, like, getting that fixed via surgery, or temporarily fixed, like, that's not a thing that's going to kill me. Not being able to use two fingers is not going to kill me. But, like, all surgery comes with a risk of death, even if it's very minor. There are drug reactions and all kinds of things. And so maybe we just shouldn't do any non-life-saving surgeries if we're going to go by the same code of ethics. I think it's being needlessly picky.
Do you think it's a money game?
No.
It seems like both things are kind of leaning towards whatever's going to get the medical industry a little bit.
I don't understand the medical association's opinion on this. I bet if PAD or PAS, sorry, acronyms are really hard. Physician assisted suicide, that's PAS. I feel like if that became, like, the commonplace thing, all these codes of conduct, all these representatives of these associations, they would all just change their tune. I think it's mostly like a majority rule thing. They're, like, trying to not stick their heads out. Like, they don't want to be the grade of the tall grade of blade of grass that gets cut kind of thing. So everyone's just going to keep their heads down until there's more popular support for it.
I mean, if you so you're talking about your hand, and if you were to go get surgery for that, you'd have to pay for it, or you don't pay for it and there's no surgery. They're going to lean on the side of you getting the surgery. As far as assisted suicide goes, if somebody needs a lot of medical treatment in order to possibly have a chance of living, that's money in their pocket, and, letting them go, not necessarily the same route.
I'm not cynical enough. Jesus.
I'm cynical enough.
I'm not cynical enough to assume that physicians just want people to suffer to pad their pockets.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Maybe I'll renege on my comment there.
I think these associations are skittish and don't want to be, like, seen as promoting suicide, which
Fair.
I think it's dumb to take to build your opinion based on the fear that people are going to call you, like, suicide promoters.
That's fair enough, though.
The other important thing that I have neglected to mention about this story is they do have some vague requirements about what is going to be required in order to undergo physician assisted suicide. So you have to be of sound mental health, you have to undergo a waiting period which is unspecified as of now, and you have to self administer the fatal dose of medication. No physician is going to be required to provide life ending drugs. But obviously the hospitals mostly will. I imagine some hospitals like Mount Carmel, St. Anne's, other religious hospitals may ask you to go to a different facility to do that kind of thing. But I mean, it's going to. I mean, that kind of thing goes the route of gay marriage, where you can get it done. Just maybe you can't compel someone to do it for you.
There we go, folks. Assisted suicide and gay marriage, basically the same.
I just mean the religious aspect. I feel like the religious aspect is the same, right? Because the contra arguments are going to come from the position of let us apply the tenets of the religion to everybody, and then the pro arguments basically. Although I do think there are some extreme cases where this isn't the case, but I think the pro arguments tend to say that, like, if you have a religious objection, feel free to do that, but I mean allow people to go elsewhere.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, which I'm fine with. How about you? You might have a slightly different opinion on this, considering you're a little more religious than I am, or Eric.
Fine with what?
Physician-assisted suicide.
Oh, I mean, I made a comment about how it's kind of hard for me to make up my mind here, because I definitely value life and think that things are possible, even when it seems unlikely. And I don't know. I understand that there are points in life where there's not much you can do. And so...
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the arguments I guarantee you're going to see people are going to trot out are like, okay, this person was like qualified, guaranteed dead by like 15,000 physicians. The Pope himself signed off that this person was going to be dead within 40. I'm being hyperbolic.
Yeah,
it's a joke. And then miraculous full recovery, no signs of relapse. It's like astounding. It's a miracle. So therefore, everyone should have to suffer.
No, I don't think that's the case. And I think that, if you're saying, hey, pass this law and we will put these life-ending drugs in the hand of the user, and that is a better way to go than some other route they may take, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I do think a good percentage of people who are going to make use of PAS are going to kill themselves anyways.
Right. I mean, like, I can't really see an argument where people would be deciding this.
I mean, yeah, like, were it me, like, law or no law, I'd kill myself. You think you can stop me from killing myself?
I can't.
I got the internet. I can find some creative ways to kill myself that aren't gonna cause issues. I mean, like, that's just the reality. I don't know. But in general, I think the introduction of this law is a good thing. But we'll see how it plays out. These kinds of laws have been shot down over and over again. But I do feel like the U.S. population is more and more sort of leaning towards it. Right? It's growing in popularity as an idea. All right. So next up, John Glenn actually posted its second busiest year. The article we linked from Biz Journal says busiest year aside from the year Airbus was introduced. So John Glenn had its second busiest year of all time last year, and apparently we are exploding as a tourist destination. We talked about this last week too, but Columbus has seen like a 24% rise year over year in tourism. What are your thoughts on Columbus being the next big hub of tourism? Why are people coming here?
I love Columbus, and I definitely think that there are some great things to do here during certain times of the year. But people who visit here and ask me what they should go do, I usually am not one to think of things right off the top of my head.
Man, isn't that the worst
tourist
question?
Destinations for Columbus. I mean, it's a good city to live in, But if I live somewhere else, I probably wouldn't visit here.
Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, it's one of those weird things where, people will ask you what is there to do, and you'll just like be like, I don't know, like anything you can do in any other city.
I mean, we have ComFest, which is probably one of our biggest events, and I know people travel for that, but
Well, I think one of the big things that people travel for, and one of the reasons you're seeing increased tourism, is people love the Blue Jackets, like a lot more than I had ever thought was the case. I think it's only because they're good, honestly. Because I've got a cousin who travels not that far, but like an hour or so, like to Columbus, and then the extra 20 minutes or whatever to go downtown.
but John Glenn's not seeing the results of that.
That's true. It's a good point. I don't know what people are coming here to see. Like a Blue Jackets game is not worth a flight. Crew games are not worth a flight. Although,
Are they counting flights that are just passing through?
I don't know. So this is actually interesting since I brought up the Crew. We are actually getting 2 direct flights to Austin this year. So if you want to go see the Crew, that is gonna be an option. You can go fly to see the Crew games and give Precourt all your money. I'm sure like 3 people in Columbus will do that. No, honestly, there's gonna be. I bet there's a few dozen people that are going to begrudgingly travel to Crew games from Columbus to Austin. Man,
Ouch.
how much are those people going to hate themselves doing that?
They're not going to feel very good.
I feel bad. I'm sure some of them like have family in Austin or whatever, and they use that to justify it. But that's got to put it like a dark pit in your stomach.
I have yet to meet a diehard fan who would be excited about traveling to another city to see their team.
Yeah. Especially the one that had this weird fucking agreement worked in the background this whole time. Like, we can't go anywhere else within this time slot except for Austin, which is where we're going to go. But we've talked that topic to death in previous weeks. So anything else to say on Columbus being a hopping-in, plane-flying tourist destination with nothing to do?
Yeah, let me know, tourists, where you're visiting.
Yeah, where are you guys going?
Because I need to see those spots.
It might be the convention center. The convention center has tons of stuff. I feel like every week it's like
That's true.
something huge. Like we have apparently 3 different anime-esque cons a year, none of which I'm going to go to because
I was gonna say, no wonder I don't know what the events are.
that's not my audience. But we have that big game fest, Origins Game Fair, every year. That's huge.
I'm unaware.
You should go. We should go at some point.
All right, let's do it.
Cool. Actually, did you ever see the top rated post on Reddit, on pics of all time? It's just this guy sitting next to these these guys with open ass cracks in a Magic the Gathering game or a tournament.
It's like a whole album of pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, I have seen that.
That was, I'm pretty sure a fair bit of that was shot at Origins.
Oh.
Because part of what they do is card game tournaments.
And you just told me we should go.
Oh, okay. Giant man ass crack. That's what gets you to events.
I mean,
I see what gets you going, Sam. It's fine. No worries, no judgment.
How are you flipping this around on me right now?
All right. Next up, do you wanted to talk about Kroger and them opening them starting Kroger starting a shuttle, right?
Yeah. So Kroger is closing a location in their Northern Lights district, and it appears that there's not a Kroger within a couple miles from there, because that's how Kroger is in Columbus.
Yeah, if there's not a Kroger within 10 feet of you, they have to build a new one.
So I mean, I guess they're just saying, let's not make this a food desert. I say that with air quotes. And let's shuttle these people up to a location that's literally a couple miles away.
Yeah, so the reason he's saying air quotes in, I guess, air quotes, is because before the show I said, I think people in Columbus are way too sensitive to the food desert, quote unquote, problem. There are no actual food deserts in Columbus. If you look at a map of grocery stores, we're not in New York City or Jersey City. We're not in this spiraling megatropolis where people can't afford the floor space to put actual groceries because they're low margin items. Because that's where real food desert type problems happen, where like there are no affordable food options that aren't like takeout or something, because the square footage you need to store food just isn't justifiable in a place like Manhattan. That's a food desert.
Plus, everybody has a car.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The thing about Columbus is you are never more than like a 10 to 15 minute drive from a from a Kroger even. I would bet you anywhere within like the Columbus metro area, you are never more than a 10-minute drive from a grocery store, and then no more than 15 from a Kroger.
I mean, I can get like across the whole city in 15 minutes. So
I mean, yeah, that's not saying much. What I'm saying though is that like there are no food deserts here in Columbus. It's not a real issue, and people try to like tackle it as if this is some like big fight we're fighting. I mean, if you want to take on like infant mortality, that's a real problem in Columbus. Food deserts, not really. Like, we have the space, we have the land. We're not fighting tooth and nail against the city for every square foot like you are in the middle of New York City. It's not an issue. Any other thoughts on the shuttle? I mean, I guess this was very negative, but like, yeah, okay. So Kroger closed down a location and then put a shuttle there so that it's convenient for people to get food. I guess that's a good thing. But
it is a good thing. If there's somebody who's used to walking to that store, they will be grateful to have a shuttle to take them somewhere else.
Yeah,
and
to help them escape the food desert.
Sounds like a slightly better alternative to just using the bus.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with the problems of busing until you do. I know we just mentioned the crew, but this is actually coming from Austin. Austin officials have halted stadium site work after the team owners of the crew, that being Precourt and his organization, have sort of lost contact with the city of Austin. So essentially, Precourt's not talking to Austin, so Austin has stopped construction. What are your thoughts on this, Sam?
I'm starting to feel like Precourt is just trying to like cause havoc just for the sake of being a rich man.
No, I feel like this man is drowning. Like, I don't think he understood like what he was getting himself into. I mean, so okay, here's the thing. You own like the least popular team in the country, right? And so you would think that, maybe nobody's going to care if we leave. Our support is lagging. Nobody really cares about our team. We perform well, but nobody comes to our games. So who's going to make a big deal if we leave? And then you get like the worst PR shitstorm that has ever hit the MLS by far. Like,
True.
Name another MLS. Like, this is like, okay, you know what? This is like FIFA level, like, nonsense. But like, it's the MLS, which nobody cares about. I feel like all of Columbus has sort of talked this whole thing to death. But like, I think Precourt literally just like got in over his head, didn't realize how much outrage there would be, how much backlash there would be against his decision to abdicate the city.
But do you think this means that he's like actually reconsidering?
I mean, maybe. MLS is making his life hard. The city's making his life hard. The state's making his life hard. Austin isn't even making his life easy, and they should be like the group in his corner. So, I mean, honestly, if I were him, well, first of all, I wouldn't buy a sports team.
Yeah.
But anyways, there are safer investments. But anyways, yeah, I would be considering trying to find a way to sell the team at a profit, if possible. That would be my end game at this point, because there's too much stigma attached to his name, to his organization. People don't want to give him money, and when people don't want to give you money, that's a big problem.
I mean, this is the first positive outlook for Crew fans in Columbus, I'd say.
What, that construction is being halted?
I mean, yeah, because up until now, I mean, you and Eric have talked about it. It seems like there's nothing we can really do. You can fight as much as you want, but if he stops talking to Austin, they're gonna stop building his stadium. And
yeah, I mean, we certainly don't have any chips, and yeah, that's I mean, I guess it's good if you want the Crew to stay here, and that's like your end game no matter what. Like, keep the Crew here, but. Personally, I think any outcome where Precourt ends up ahead, I'm not a fan of. Like he needs to kind of like suffer a little bit.
I think he's suffering. If he has stopped contacting like the city that's been his main goal this entire time, there's some suffering going on.
Oh, poor Precourt. All right, ready to move on to debate and discussion?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so first up in debate and discussion, we have a story from Ars Technica. Turns out that we've talked about Slate, we've talked about 4chan, we've talked about other websites getting into this this hot new trend of extracting money from their users by mining crypto, right?
Right.
Sorry, yeah, I know. I talked to Eric, not you, about it. I think we've discussed it too, though, off the air. So it turns out that YouTube is currently serving ads that are running JavaScript code that are doing the same thing. Well, how does that make you feel, Sam? Not just some like news website which nobody cares about, not just 4chan, but now we have YouTube mining your browser for crypto.
This is tough because on one hand, like I definitely feel like Google had to have seen this. Like they know this is a thing. They know that you can embed JavaScript that mines coins, and they know that that's how their advertisers work. So they had to leave the door open in order for it to be gone through.
Yeah, I mean, why would they allow custom JavaScript if they didn't intend for this to happen? I guess so. Like, how would I phrase this? Why would you allow this exact connection protocol to be available to advertisers and not block this type of traffic from your system? Unless you A, didn't see it coming, or B, just don't care that much. I think those are your two options, because you either have to be maliciously compliant or ignorant in this case, right? And so the question is, what is YouTube? I think that's a fair.
It's tough. I mean, would it be public information if they were allowing advertisers to do this for like extra money? I mean, we know that Google's always trying to grab that extra buck from its users.
I don't think that's what's happening. I do think the door was left open. The question is whether it was malicious or whether it was through ignorance. Because I don't think you can make that much money, not enough for YouTube to risk their reputation for this. So it's really annoying, because you have to know that there are tons and tons of tech people at Google who are like, oh yeah, this is definitely a thing that happens all the time, right? Like the crypto mining thing comes up on Hacker News like weekly, and there are thousands of Googlers. I hate that word, but there are thousands of Googlers who browse Hacker News at the very least. So it's not an unknown thing. So either people making decisions in technology, people aren't communicating, which, shock, hard to believe, right? Or Google is acting maliciously and just doesn't care. My guess is the former probably happened. Like, somebody's probably losing their head over all this bad PR right now and had no idea that this was even a possibility. Meanwhile, you have developers yes, of course, that was something we could have resolved if it was a priority.
Yeah, I guess you always have to realize that at a company that big, there's definitely a nice big gap between the developers and their management.
Oh yeah, no, there's layers of information abstraction all over the place, and business doesn't know what tech is doing, and vice versa. And I think that's universal. So my guess is it was probably one of those cases, and I'm sure they'll correct it sometime. But yeah, for now, even the mighty YouTube is going to mine your browser for crypto. So
yeah, it's tough because it's already an advertisement. Like they're already I have actually been sort of advocating for, if you're going to mine a little bit to make some money instead of throwing ads in my face, it's not really going to slow my computer down, and I can avoid advertisements, which I don't want to see. And I understand that people have to make money off of what they're doing, so that makes sense. But if you're going to be an ad and you're going to be mining crypto,
I think I
don't have much sympathy there.
Yeah, Eric and I agreed when we talked about the 4chan thing. as an alternative to advertising, mining is fine, but combining the two is like, so first you're like kicking the dog, but then you're like calling it a bad name. Like kicking the dog is like showing the advertisement, right? Like that sucks. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
That's pretty terrible. And then you're just like adding insult to injury. But yeah, I'm not a fan. And it's really surprising to see this coming out of Google, although my guess is ultimately you just have left hand, right hand not talking to each other. And now some person who works in like PR is losing their mind and is like, oh my God, why didn't anyone tell me? And they're communicating with business, and business is like, we didn't know.
Somebody want to let me know what coin they're mining so I can get on board?
Well, it's too late. I mean, you've already missed the train. Like minutes after this was announced, I'm sure some coin's valuation changed. Although my guess is they might just be using something like Nice Hash, which just mines the most expensive coin. That's the most common mining strategy these days. I don't like that because this is completely aside, but I wouldn't want my money split up into like 100 different coins just because the value keeps fluctuating. I don't want to like manage that. But I mean, I guess if you're like a serious miner with like, thousands of dollars invested in graphics cards, and by that I mean 3 graphics cards. Like I get it. It's worth the annoyance, but I personally wouldn't want to do that because I mine and get like $2 a day because I bought a graphics card back when they were cheap, and now they're absurd.
Congrats.
Thanks. So moving on to the next story. This is actually really relevant for Sam, who is the most pro net neutrality person on the planet, and then some. Hey, remember back in college when you wrote that big report on net neutrality?
Yeah, I got an A. Got really into it for sure.
Yeah. So Sam's a big net neutrality proponent. So Montana, of all states, has been the first state to implement net neutrality at a state level following the FCC decision to revoke it at a federal level. How do you feel about that, Sam?
I am all for it because I'm for state policies and small government, and I'm also for net neutrality. So this is a big win in my book.
Did you just say you're for? You said you're for small government and for net neutrality, though. Those don't exactly jive when we're talking about government enforcement of a policy that was socially constructed.
Yeah, that was a hard thought to wrap my mind around when I first started getting into net neutrality. It was just like my stance on, not wanting the government to be involved, and then I realized that in this particular instance, the government was actually a better option than letting the monopolies. AKA AT&T and Verizon, Spectrum.
Man, isn't AT&T garbage?
I would say so.
So I just have to say that because so I ordered AT&T and for my internet for my house, and they canceled my appointment. And then I called them to cancel the service, and then they moved it back to the same day, like 4 hours later. And then they failed to show up again. And like 10 minutes before, like 4 o'clock, which was like the deadline for them to show up, they moved it a week later. What absolute nonsense.
That's pretty bad. I mean, especially without like really talking to you about it and then just saying, hey, why don't you just not have internet for a week?
Yeah, wasn't it you who said something like, this is what happens when you do business with a monopoly?
I mean, yeah, they don't really care about you.
Oh, man, it sucks. But yeah, I will say, at the very least, I do think there are a lot of instances where like government intervention is necessary, right? I'm not like an anarchist.
Yeah.
I don't think Eric is either. He probably falls closer to that than either of us. But I think if a state wants to enact net neutrality, I don't care. I don't know.
There are simple things that the SEC can do to stop, these ISPs from having full reign over how they treat their customers, and it'll just keep things the way they are, which is not necessarily the government implementing rules that are restrictive or like over the top. It's just they're making sure that things don't get out of hand.
So I think I'm fine with this being solved at the state level, where you implement it state by state, or you don't if your state's really against it. How do you feel about that? Because I'm generally a pretty let states handle as much as possible and the federal government as little as possible.
I guess I wasn't really aware before this article that states could make a decision based on net neutrality.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you get to a state gets to determine who does business in their state, and they have regulations for different states, right? Like the federal government regulations can always be more strict than the states, but they can never be. I guess state regulations can always be more strict than the federal government, just never less than, because they always have to at minimum enforce federal. So if the federal restrictions are nothing, you can still impose your own restrictions, and that's what net neutrality essentially is doing. You're putting restrictions on what the ISPs can do, and so that's the thing that can happen.
That's not always the case, though. Sometimes the government enacts laws that states are forced to follow.
Like what?
Gay marriage.
So I mean, that's a civil rights issue. That's not a regulations issue. What I'm saying, I'm talking about in
FCC in particular.
No. I mean, just regulatory bodies in particular. Like, so take minimum wage, for instance. You always have to pay at least the federal minimum wage, but a state can establish its own higher minimum wage.
Okay.
Like, you can only add more regulations to federal. You can never remove federal regulations states can't remove federal things.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That's essentially how it works. So are you in favor of solving this at a state level? Would you still want to see the FCC decision overturned? In which case you're going to have to wait until Ajit Snow. the reality is you're just going to have to wait until minimum 2020 in that case.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of states making their own decisions based on net neutrality, but I would like to see FCC regulation be setting the bottom bar a little higher than they are right now.
I see. Final question on this. How surprised on a scale from 1 to 10 are you that the first state to do this is Montana?
I didn't ever see a headline about Montana before this, so maybe the appealing thing is that, if they're actually line set in a state that big for internet, then those service providers definitely don't want to mess with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you have to run millions of dollars worth of line to hit 12 people.
Yeah, I know.
It's such a massive state I think it's the third least populated state or something.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
I think North Dakota is the least populated, but yeah, there's nobody in Montana either. It's an actual flyover state, unlike what people on the coast call Ohio. It's an actual nobody lives there except animals state.
Hey, our tourism is up.
Yeah, I know, because we're not a flyover state. We are a Midwestern state, and I can say that because Eric's not on the podcast to yell at me.
I actually agree with his argument about us being a Great Lakes state.
God damn it!
I have a friend from South Dakota, and he's always giving us a hard time.
I can't win with you people.
Well,
anyways, last up, since we just talked about crypto, I will say whatever coin they're mining, it's probably not BitConnect Cash. So for those of you who don't know, just to give a little background, BitConnect Cash, BitConnect was sort of this organization that pitched their own crypto, and the only way to really put the structuring of how this coin worked is that it was an affiliate based pyramid scheme. That's just the reality of it. You can see videos from the creators that lay out the we had a friend who called it an inverted funnel scheme.
Yes.
But anyway, so the coin crashed and the owners basically closed shop and deleted every video they ever made. But there are a few backups. And so one of the things they did when they were marketing and trying to pitch this coin is they published a music video, which got a little popular in the cryptocurrency community, and people were cheering them on for a while. God knows why. Probably people who had invested early and wanted to see some money. I just thought I'd play the video for you, and I wanted to gauge your reaction after. And I'm going to put about a minute of the audio into the video, and then you can respond, and we'll see.
I have not seen this.
Yep. So you're going in blind. All right, you ready?
Hey, BitConnect. To the seers in the house tonight. Gonna get your money right. You makers.
Let me hip you guys. My cash flow decentralized. With cryptocurrency, all my friends are hypnotized. I got a blockchain for my wallet, boy, don't get surprised. BCC in high demand, you know they got a big supply. Come on.
You got to lend a little something if you wanna get a little interest. Lend your coin, you can make a profit. Right.
So, Sam, you just watched that. So, what are your thoughts?
Holy wow, this feels like some weird episode of Black Mirror where everybody is stuck in a system and that system is BitConnect.
Oh my God, it's so cringeworthy. Okay, so first there's like this Europop like overture. I mean, everyone just listened to it, obviously, right? But like it like that repetitive like. I mean, you know what Europop sounds like. It's just like generic, but she's singing about like you gotta like save money, get a little profit. And then repeats the words right a lot. And then the guy comes in rapping about like his blockchain wallet. Oh man. The next Lil Dicky of our generation.
Oh my gosh. Don't even put Lil Dicky that low.
Oh man. So yeah, it's amazing to find out that they're insolvent and are basically running from all their investors. Who would have guessed? It was as if there were no early warning signs. Videos with pyramid scheme-like shapes in the background. Very hyped up, bizarre music videos. What?
The amazing thing is that the production value on this video is actually kind of high.
Oh yeah, it's really high.
Yeah.
They got like people going into nightclubs and stuff. Like it's very well shot is what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Crypto kind of deserves to burn a little bit. Like at least this aspect of crypto, like people just like wanting to start their own ICOs and scam a bunch of people, that's gotta burn off. And if it doesn't burn off naturally, the SEC is going to be involved.
If there was a single person who watched this video and thought that after seeing it, investing was a good idea, I want to talk to them.
But Sam, you've got to make a little profit.
Wait, did you say profit?
Yeah. You got to make a little something, Right.
Right.
Oh my God. All right, I think that's it for debate and discussion. Unless you want to defend BCC right now.
No thanks.
I hear they're evaluated at like 0.006 cents per coin. So buy low, guys.
Yeah, you never know. It could be 10,000 next year. 10,000, guys.
Yeah, it's essentially the new Bitcoin.
Every coin has the same potential to reach Bitcoin levels.
Yeah. So actually, you should just buy a ton of Ripple because there are trillions of it, and they're like pennies,
right?
So, anyways,
I don't think everybody understands our sarcasm.
So, anyways, let's move on to our feature topic. Okay, so for our feature topic, we have new live data coming from Strava Labs. Now, essentially, what they've done, what they are, is they collect a ton of fitness and sort of pathing tracking data. Now, if you want to, you can. So, assuming you live in Columbus, right? Like, you can literally enter Columbus into this map we have linked. And if you don't want to look at the show notes, just go to labs.strava.com/heatmap or just Google Strava Labs. But they have like worldwide fitness tracking, and a lot of really big fitness apps use them for sort of path tracking. And so they essentially have like the entire world mapped out as a heat map. And it's really, so from my perspective, it's really cool, this data map. On the other hand, this has caused a lot of immediate concerns. One of the biggest, most obvious ones is that they have given away a patrol heat map of every military base, or almost every military base that's known on the planet. Like, you can just look up military camps, look at the heat map, and you're like, oh, I know where all the patrols are.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Obviously, probably some sort of oversight, but this really just wasn't well thought out. Another issue is that there are some places where walking density is so low that you can track individual people's and their commutes basically, because you can track a single tail end into a high density place. So you know, like, that is to say, if you know where somebody like lives, you can track them to like see where they're heading, more or less.
That's taking this to a pretty small scale, but
Well, a lot of people are concerned about that because it's not much of an issue in, like, if you live in Columbus, right? I mean, there's just too much heat on the heat map for any individual person to be tracked using this anonymous data. But in rural areas, you can literally track in some individuals if they're using like MyFitnessPal or something with that integrates with Strava, and this data is just available to the public now. Like people can see that, oh, this guy like cuts through this yard every day, like as a part of this path.
Yeah.
Like, actually looking at my university campus was really interesting. It's like there are a lot of places where there aren't roads, but there are like clear what do you call them, paths of desire, where people just like walk across the grass in a specific spot.
That is interesting.
Yeah, no, the data is super cool, but so what are your thoughts on these two big concerns that people have raised over this data being public?
As far as individually tracking people, I would say you'd do a better job just showing up to their house and watching where they go from there. Not to advocate doing that, but I don't think
that's harder to do though. So let's say you're like,
maybe I'm just not enough of a scumbag to like even know what it's like to want to like watch where a person.
but let's say you're
travels.
like,
I'm talking about the individual basis,
Right.
leaving the military thing aside.
but let's say you're like a what do you call it? Like, let's say you're a member of an authoritarian government trying to get information on people.
Okay.
This is a very useful way to have data at your fingertips that allows you to track the movements of specific people who live in relatively de-urbanized areas, or unurbanized areas is a better way to put it, not de-urbanized. And a lot of that's going on in other ways, right? Like, license plates are being tracked all over. Essentially, if you drive a car right now, the government has a pretty good idea of where you're going. But this also, if you're using a fitness tracking app, just adds to that lack of privacy.
Yeah, I suppose. I think that for the average person, they're being tracked everywhere they go, anyways. And
How have we come to the point where that's acceptable?
the point where nobody does anything about it. I mean, I use Google Maps on a daily basis. It doesn't know where I am, but knows where everybody else is, which sure helps me with my commute.
Oh, don't fool yourself. It knows where you're at.
When I have the app open, that's why you have to look before you leave.
I mean, I don't trust Google to not have ways of knowing like where you're at, even with like location services and stuff turned off. Like, there are ways, right? You can roughly estimate where somebody is just by owning cell towers, right? If you're like, let's say AT&T, you roughly know where I am right now.
That's true.
Or at least you roughly know where my cell phone is, right? All you
Yeah.
need is 3 towers, and we're in the middle of a city. Because that kind of triangulation is accurate to feet. So I even if Google doesn't know, there are private entities that basically know where we're at all the time, and it's concerning. At least for me. And I do think you're right that, I mean, it basically just happened because nobody has done anything about it. But the question is, at what point do we stop, or do we not? Do we just eventually accept the panopticon? I guess I should explain that term. So, I guess in information theory, the word panopticon is used to sort of describe a situation where like everybody knows what everyone else is doing at all times. It comes from the idea of this like ancient Roman jail where you would have like sentries sit in like the center of this place, and like the entire outer wall of like a cylinder type shape were like prisoners, and so they could all be watched at all times from all directions in the tower. But anyways, the idea is that essentially everybody's going to be watched by everybody at all times. Like, privacy is just going to be gone.
I mean, from what I see, the majority of people think that that's convenient more than it is scary. And so there will always be a minority, which is us, who don't want that going on, but we're going to lose in the long run. I mean, seeing this data does not surprise me. Seeing a heat map of where people travel, I mean, I can understand why it's public. Like, the interesting thing I've been noticing, I zoomed in on Columbus. It kind of shows almost a nice little economic chart here, because you got downtown and Bexley and Grandview and Clintonville are all nice and lit up. You go into like south and east sides of Columbus, excluding Bexley there, and it's a pretty dark graph.
Yeah, one thing else you can point out, and I mean, look, I mean, creepiness aside and my objections aside, the data is really cool. Like I know that was the first thing I said, but it is worth noting that the data is pretty neat. By far the most lit up place in Columbus, I shouldn't say place, but like street, is High Street. High Street is people adamantly travel High Street to an absurd degree. As soon as you get away from High Street, traffic branches off, but people are on High Street in places where like there aren't sidewalks, like near the end of it.
Yeah.
Like people stridently travel high, which is kind of interesting.
You got a nice little map of high banks all lit up in neon.
Downtown is like mega lit up, which is interesting because like nothing. I mean, we've talked about how nothing but work really happens downtown. But it's interesting that it looks like most people are at least walking several blocks to work if you work downtown. I mean, I guess it's just really convenient to take the buses because all the buses go down there.
I mean, it's mostly like the bike path and the Scioto Mile, though, right?
No, the entire like cross grid of downtown is pretty lit up, especially. What are those two parallel north to south streets that run adjacent to like the outer curve of the trail? But anyways, like downtown is pretty walkable.
It's hard to say though whether or not this is like charts on actual foot traffic or charts on who owns fitness trackers.
I mean, yeah, that's fair, and it is worth noting that the majority of this map is actually biking. And I think the reason for that is actually just because the way it looks like they're doing calculations, they're not adjusting for speed. So what that means is if a bike travels, I mean, if you travel on a bike for an hour and you travel on foot for an hour, you're going to get much more light up from a bike just because bikes move faster. And then there's also like kayaking or something, like water travel. Which,
kayaking? What?
Well, so like you can sort by activity type, and there's like water travel, water activity, and then there's winter activity. So if you look at water activity, there's not that much because Columbus. I wonder if you look at winter activity, if you'll see the place up in Marysville lit up. No, it doesn't look like it. So, anyways, it's mostly bikes. Oh no, I take that back. If you select winter activities, what's that place up in Marysville? Ski lodge. Anyways, it's pretty lit up on the outer perimeter.
Oh wow.
So that's neat. So, do you have anything else to add aside from
No, I think
privacy bad?
I think we've
Beat that topic to death.
Yeah, we have.
And it's unfortunate. It's just it's all eroding away, and there's nothing us mere humans can do about it. Well, do you have anything else, Sam?
Nope.
All right. Well, this has been Columbus This Week. Thanks everybody for joining us. Hope to see you next week.